Hello, everyone. Welcome back to NAMI Maine Talks. My name is Ambrose Ward, and I am our marketing and media specialist here at NAMI Maine. And I'm joined with Alexander Katopis and Jordan G. Shaw from the Maine Mental Health Counselors Association. Thank you guys so much for being here. Would you guys like to do a quick little intro for yourselves?
Sure. Jordan?
I'm Dr. Jordan Shaw. I'm president-elect of the Maine Mental Health Counselors Association.
Thanks, Ambrose. I'm Alexander Katopis. I'm past president of Maine Mental Health Counseling Association. Now I just serve on the board, and I am the chair of the membership committee. It's great to be with you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So I think we'll just start out right away where April is recognized as National Counselling Awareness Month. But not a lot of people really understand the true definition of counseling. Can you guys kind of expand on what is counseling to you guys?
Sure, absolutely. You want me to?
Go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Jordan. So I wanted to actually start by saying that for counseling professionals, Counseling Awareness Month is every month.
Yeah.
12 months a year. And we really try to make an effort, not only as professional counselors, as faculty at the University of Southern Maine Counselor Education Program and representing Maine Mental Health Counseling Association, but we want to actually inform the community of what counseling is throughout the entire year. But yes, most importantly about, April, I think there's a national recognition to what we do. And, for me, counseling, has a definition of when an individual wants to try to engage in a process where they learn more about themselves.
Yeah.
And they're really working on achieving what they feel is their own wellness and betterment. And that actually really, I think, differentiates us from what we use as the wellness model to what the doctors, medical providers, or other disciplines use is the medical model. And the really wellness model is, there's a lot of, nuances, but one foundational difference, and I think that's what also kind of is a stage to set up counseling, right? It's a person-centered or client-centered driven process, meaning that we are facilitators and guides into working with an individual or a group or a family or a couple, on what they want to improve. Different aspects, whether it's psychologically driven, whether it's socially driven, whether it's professionally driven, is that the client really is the arbiter and gatekeeper of how they define wellness and actually also the benchmarks and standards of how they prove the outcomes of wellness. Now, we're there to kind of be a participant observer. We do obviously have our own techniques and areas of discipline and expertise that follows. But I think that's really the essence of what counseling captures, and I'm sure Jordan would have his view as well.
Yeah, I think we're companions on a journey, right? And so I think the way that I conceptualize counseling is that I'm as a provider, I'm sitting there with somebody else who's the expert on their own life, and they get to drive the bus. I'm just there to point out the road signs.
I love that. I love the way that you explained that. So for people who may be wondering, at what point would you guys say you maybe want to go see a counselor? At what point do you think people should make that realization that they might want to go and speak to someone about some of their goals, accomplishing their goals, or some things that's going on within them?
I'm biased, but I think everybody should be in counseling. Right? Like, I think you don't need to have a huge behavioral health issue, mental health issue to seek out a counselor. Really, it can be for anything. Just a general conversation or ongoing clinical work is perfectly fine reason.
I want to support what Jordan said. We're kind of like-minded individuals in many ways. But I would say that to just add to that is that, our industry really is trying to seek more preventative measures. Than interventional measures. So the best time to seek counseling is not when a crisis happens, But if you are really trying to experiencing some changes in your, if you recognize them, changes in your disposition, in your
Yeah.
daily outlook on life, like when they're really actually a little bit smaller in scale, that's
Yeah.
individualized. That's the point to seek counseling, because again, it's easier for counselors and individuals who seek that. And I want to make sure that I'm expanding, right? It's not just individuals, it's
Yeah.
couples, families. We have expertise in many avenues and groups, but that you're seeking counseling more in a proactive kind of manner, so that you're really trying to get those interventions,
Yeah.
increase your self-awareness, and be able to kind of mitigate these situations or challenges prior to really significantly escalating.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And something that we talk about here at NAMI Maine a lot is signs and symptoms. Basically, it's very important to observe friends, and you'll notice these short and small little things called signs and symptoms where, maybe someone is not as well kept as they usually are, or maybe they're not enjoying things that they usually used to enjoy. And I think that that really kind of correlates with what you were saying, where instead of someone else from the outside recognizing it, it's important for the person who may be struggling to also recognize it, and address it before it snowballs into something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in Maine, especially, there can be lots of barriers for people trying to access mental health counseling. We're a very rural state. We're very widespread across the state. And I know that something we also talk about is sometimes with men, especially in some of our other industries, it's hard for them to kind of feel like they can go out and seek help from a counselor. What do you guys kind of say to that? Like, what have you guys seen as some of the biggest barriers with people?
I think fear of judgment is a big reason folks don't seek out services. And quite honestly, I mean, wait lists are so long that it can be hard to find a
Yeah.
provider. And so I think that those are two, and then a mismatch or maybe a bad experience. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think barriers also, I also would include, and I think it's very similar or aligned with what Jordan mentioned, right? Is sometimes we stereotype or we marginalize individuals based on thinking that because you've identified a challenge, whether because we're all connected, mind, body, right? Whether we just don't feel aligned to our characterological disposition or makeup, right? And we announce to our friends or community, right, that we feel we might have an issue, and especially when we title that mental health or substance misuse, that there's an instant kind of image that comes to somebody's mind, and then we compartmentalize that individual in this category, and it's sometimes fearful for somebody to kind of step out and to actually mention that, or and then how are they going to navigate into like the interpersonal dynamics of their work environment? Feel that you have a mental health issue. How is that going to kind of interrupt your job or your friends or your daily interactions, rather than kind of really changing our societies? And I'll specifically mention Maine, that when somebody is kind of expressing that they've identified a piece of them that they want assistance with a counselor, that we embrace that individual, and we really, with compassion and empathy and curiosity, rather than trying to solicit what's coming out of our mind, right, of these categories that they are kind of maladaptive individual to the Maine society.
Yeah, I think that's a great way that you put it. And yeah, I think we do have those barriers in the state. And, feeling judgment, I think that ties so heavily into stigma. And of course, that is a battle that has been going on for so long, and we're still fighting the concept of stigma. Yeah, thank you guys. So, as we mentioned before, not all Mainers have access to counselors. Maybe they don't have access in their communities. Maybe they're a little bit fearful of seeking out assistance. But sometimes they have that option. They still refuse to speak to someone. They still refuse to seek out counseling. What would you guys say to that?
I think folks, in my experience, folks reach out when they're ready to change.
Yeah.
There's a readiness to deal with whatever is coming up. And sometimes it takes a lot of courage to do that. Yeah, I think that, I don't know about you, but that's been my experience, that there might be this reluctance to reach out, fear, and at the will often reach out when.
Yeah. hmm And I know that I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show, but The Sopranos. I'm a very big fan of The Sopranos, and at some point in the show, our main character Tony, he ends up seeking help from a professional, and once his friends and family find out about it, most of his friends are very understanding, but his family, which is an old Irish Catholic, or not Irish Catholic, an old Italian Catholic family, um, they're a little worried that he's speaking to someone. They think that obviously through stigma, they talk about, oh, maybe he'll be sent to the madhouse, or, you know, they're just very dismissive of what he's going through. And later on in the show, you find out that this is something that is generational. His father struggled with it, just like how he struggles with it, and just like how we see his son start to struggle with it. And we see Tony as kind of this person that starts to jump over the barrier. He has recognized that I need to talk to someone about this. Just like what we said earlier, like he became comfortable with speaking to someone about this. And yeah, I think it really speaks to counseling and the importance of destigmatizing counseling, because it can be, especially with certain cultures, certain generations, they really see it as almost as it has no use. But as we know, it's very useful and it's very important for people. Yeah.
Yeah, I just can I comment?
Yeah, of course.
Sure, great. So I love The Sopranos as well.
Yeah.
And I think that the show. I don't want to get into the kind of granular details
Yeah,
or
of course.
analysis of the show, but I do want to mention that the show. I do agree with you. Depicts counseling in a Hollywood kind of mannerisms, but
Yeah.
it does depict the interpersonal transformation of the relationship between Tony and his counselor.
Yes. Yeah.
And the projection that he kind of really elicits in the sessions, and how she has the great ability to be able to create a safe container for him to really have his true colors come out and address them. And there was ups and downs.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I want to mention that. And the reason that I'm mentioning it is I want to kind of tie that in to your previous question regarding, like, what do you do if an individual, is refusing counseling? Well, I don't have the school of thought. I'm with Jordan. I'm not in the school of thought to force somebody to get treatment.
Yeah.
That really does not usually have any good outcomes or positive outcomes. But what it does is having their family unit, their social unit, their friends unit hold a safe space, so that and really make sure that they feel comfortable and vulnerable to at least talk to somebody, so that when they're ready, they're going to be more prone to engage. Just like Tony, right? There was a process for him to come to an understanding that he cannot help himself. He needs somebody else. And that sometimes, takes, as Jordan said, a lot of courage for us to come to that understanding.
Yeah, I think that's a great breakdown of the work throughout The Sopranos that they projected in that. I think I wanted to mention, at this time, especially in our history, not only is it incredibly stressful, and incredibly anxiety inducing just watching the news or hearing stories about what is going on throughout the world. And some people don't have access to counseling through their healthcare, and they would have to pay out of pocket for that. And they feel that it's not worth the money that they would spend, or it's not worth the time. What would you guys say to someone who actively wants to receive counseling but isn't aware or isn't able to access it through their healthcare or isn't able to access it monetarily wise?
There are a whole bunch of folks who offer sliding scales, and so I would say it doesn't hurt to reach out and ask the question.
Yeah.
I have a small private practice on the side. I offer a sliding scale and those sorts of things.
Could you actually explain what a sliding scale is for our audience?
Sure. So it's a range of payment that the clinician is willing to accept. Usually it's negotiated up front.
Yeah.
In the first session. And then the client is responsible for that.
Yeah.
I think that there are also all kinds of pro bono services available. I'll give a couple shout outs to a couple of other nonprofits, but Oasis Free Clinic in Brunswick is a great resource for folks who live in the Brunswick area. Alex and I are both co-founders of another organization called the Collaborative Counseling Laboratory. We offer free counseling provided by practicum students who are or counselor ed students who are learning to be counselors.
Yeah.
And as part of their education. And so I think if money is tight, there's always an opportunity. Sometimes have to scratch the surface to find those.
Yeah. And so I know that through your work with the Maine Mental Health Counselors Association, you guys do a lot of work with students who are studying to become counselors. What does that kind of look like for you guys?
Yeah, so if I understand your question, like how is MEMHCA or Maine Mental Health Counseling Association partnering with counselors in training?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that, do you mind if I back it up a little
Yeah,
bit
of course.
about MEMHCA?
Of course.
And I want Jordan to speak on this, and our current president, Sean Graham. I'm going to give a shout out to him, and Dr. Jerry Stevens, who actually is one of the co-founders of the state chapter. So I want to give both of them a shout out. If you do keep it on this tape recording, I'd love for them to just hear their names because they're a very important part of it. But I wanted to mention that there's 3 primary areas that MEMHCA focuses on, and it's really aligned with our parent organization, AMCA, American Mental Health Counseling Association. So if people who listen can indulge me for a moment, the 3 areas would be that we focus on, is one is advocacy, the second is professional development, and the third is community and connection. And they have to fall into those 3 categories. That's our mission. I really believe that all 3 of those areas really tie into students' ongoing professional development.
Yeah.
Whether they come to USM Counselor Education Program, whether they're at Husson Counselor Education Program, whether they're UMaine Farmington Counseling Psychology Program, or all the other online universities in counselor education that are present in Maine, what we'd like and what are really embedded, and I truly believe this in all counselor education programs, is the philosophy that no person's an island, and you have to be interconnected with a network of individuals, not only for your own professional development, but for consultative reasons, for supervision reasons, for growth reasons, and it is part of our service to the profession, and this is for students, to join organizations to continue to create change.
Yeah.
And so what we offer students are all of the above, an opportunity for them to connect with us in professional development opportunities. I conduct free for MEMHCA members, whether they're student or professional, monthly consultation groups. So
Nice.
They do count towards your education units that are required to be maintained every 2 years. They can join a slew of committees. Jordan is overseeing all of them now as president-elect, and you can join in a committee that might align with your professional passions, whether it's increasing membership with me, whether it's being under Jerry for our legislative committee or other event committees. And then the third thing is that it's a great opportunity for them to meet counseling professionals who are in the industry, who are seasoned, who could actually be the mentor and pass that metaphoric baton. Because, we've had great counselors, hint Jerry Stevens being one of them, and a lot of others that have shaped our own professional identities and careers. And now it's time for us. I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I'm at that age where we're passing the baton to the others.
Yeah.
And if you break that process, our industry will no longer exist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think there's with MEMHCA, there's a place if a student wants to be engaged, or anybody LCPC wants to be engaged. There's ample opportunity.
Yeah,
and really, we'll take anybody willing to work, I guess.
Yeah.
Very true.
And one of the things that I think is important, if there is a student that's studying to be a clinical mental health counselor, that wants to be part of MEMHCA, it's free for
nice.
students.
And
so I think that's something important to know. And once you're a member, we can get you plugged in anywhere you want to be.
So as we were talking about MEMHCA, could you guys give me kind of a brief little history about the American Mental Health Counselors Association and how that kind of branched out to become our Maine branch?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. I'll give it a shot.
You know the history better than I
I'll
do.
give it a shot. So how about, again, I'll give a little backdrop to the viewers. So why don't we start with the history of our profession?
Yeah.
So our profession was started by Mr. Frank Parsons in 1908. And actually, our profession was born, and I'm going to give a compliment and a shout out to school counselors, which, by the way, our state has a shortage of students and of school counselors. And again, my colleague Tina Nightingale, who I consider is the best faculty, it started as guidance counselors in 1908. And it's really out of the principle of guiding individuals to vocational interests. And through that time, they were kind of wrestling with different ideas, how those ideas really aligned with their professional passions. And sometimes they didn't match, or they had to, pick up a trade from a family. So they had a kind of an internal fracture, and that really was born. Now, our profession actually was born in the 60s, right? Post-World War II. And that's when really we separated from social work, which, by the way, was founded, if you look back historically, in the 1870s. So we are a really new profession. We're new. We're only, right, if I could do my math, because counselors really don't sometimes, but 58 years old. We're not 200 years old.
Yeah.
And so AMCA, the American Counseling Association, was founded in 1976. And it was really we split. AMCA was found in 76 because there was a counseling association, ACA, American Counseling Association, which we collaborate with. But that's inclusive of all counseling professions. And what AMHCA, how it broke off and still collaborates, but still has its own identity, is we wanted really to advocate for clinical mental health counseling, that specific discipline, because sometimes a lot of attention wasn't given to that. So in the late 70s, 76, AMCA was born. And it was a kind of specifically focused on reciprocity, interstate licensure in all states. We still don't have that. We're still working towards that kind of vision. And then certain state chapters broke out. And with us, the MEMHCA was formed. You got to fact check me. I'm sure people will on AI. But I believe it was in the late 80s. So in 87, I believe, 87 or 89. Right. And that was at the same year where the state of Maine began to formally form a board of counseling professionals and actually regulate licenses, LCPCs, what we now know today as LCPCs. Yeah. So that was in the late 80s, 87 or 89. And so, again, MEMHCA was formed on the mission that originated back in the days in the 70s and kind of broke out. And then as our science evolved, so did we. But the three mission I told you about, those areas of advocacy, community and connections, and professional development has been a thread that has been really sewn right from the inception of American Mental Health Counseling and Maine Mental Health Counseling, and we kind of just promote that. And we're hoping to, it can continue to grow. But, our presence, not only in Maine, but what we want to do is we want to collaborate.
Yeah.
So we want to collaborate with social workers. We want to collaborate with, school psychologists. And I think the more that we know, the better off it is to kind of shape our own discipline. But it's our own area of specialization, right? We're different than vocational rehabilitation counselors, or we're different from school counselors. But yet, in those differences, there are similarities. And I think that's where our kind of community connection comes from. So a little bit of a brief history about our profession and our organization's history.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it speaks a lot to kind of the generational difference or the generational understandings of counseling. Whereas with younger generations, Gen Z like myself, counseling is seen as very normalized. It's very common, but for some of the older generations that were, maybe about in their 20s, well, counseling was first kind of becoming this major process. I think they didn't really understand it, and to the point where they still kind of don't understand it. So I think that's really great. And I'm very surprised that it's only been about 58 years. That's wild. So as we're kind of getting close to the end, can you guys talk about what is the process of education for counselors, and how can your organization support people who are in training or in education to become a mental health counselor?
So our master's degrees are 63 credit hours, and they include training in things like ethics and human development, relationships, working with different populations, that sort of stuff. And then it's capped off by 1,000 hours of contextual education. So 100 hours first experience, and they get their feet wet, and then students 900-hour internship after that.
Oh, wow.
And so and we really do, we cover a lot of ground. Anything from how to work with children to touch on how to work with insurance companies.
Oh, wow.
Those sorts of things. So a well-rounded education. We support, MEMHCA supports those students through avenues to get involved, through mentoring, through a whole host of programs like our annual conference, our annual meeting and ethics training.
That's great. Before we kind of wrap up for the day, if any of our listeners are interested in either getting in touch with you guys, or either interested in kind of learning more about mental health counseling or how they can get involved with MEMHCA, what would you guys say to them?
So I would say, please reach out to us with our MEMHCA email. I don't know. It's MEMHCA
at gmail.com.
MEMHCA@gmail.com. We both are faculty at the University of Southern Maine. They could reach out to us directly, and we would be more than happy to talk to them about counselor education in general, or MEMHCA specifically. So I don't mind sharing my alexander.katopis@maine.edu. That's fine. And, we would definitely be able to, understand, trying to understand what their goal is and how that aligns with MEMHCA's different areas. What I wanted to say also for the listeners is to specifically those who are interested in joining the profession, or those students who are currently in the profession, the statement would be different. If you're interested in joining the profession, I think there's a sense of altruism that you have to share about helping others that it's not exchange for monetary compensation.
Yeah.
Again, we have to live, but there's a true essence of helping others and holding a safe space for others that is beyond financial compensation. Financial compensation or monetary compensation is an added benefit of the profession. You have to love what you do. And there are other factors, but if you are currently in the industry, whether you're a student in the first day or first year, or you're a seasoned professional, there is a hierarchy of involvement. We actually are having an informational session in 2 weeks on Friday. We have informational sessions for the public, and they can join. And the first one is about advocacy and involvement. And involvement could just be like, I pay my association dues, which are $60 a year, MEMHCA, all the way to becoming president of Maine Mental Health Counseling Association or AMCA, and really influencing legislative change and all in between. But what I want to say is that we are all spread thin, meaning everybody is we have our lives. But if there's any words that your listeners should kind of hear at least from my perspective, right? Involvement matters for the continued evolution and survival of our discipline as clinical mental health counselors. Because if we stop, organizations such as us, our license could be jeopardized. Our ability to bill private insurance and MaineCare and Medicaid and Medicare can cease to exist. And it's people before us that have fought to maintain or expand our rights and access. That needs to be, continued. And even a small contribution, whether it's money or time, matter. And if you want to, if you feel alone in your own world and you're struggling with your thoughts or whatever issues that might kind of surface, okay, you're not alone. We are all struggling with some type of challenge, and that there is services out there for you, whether it's 211 Maine, whether it's the counseling laboratory, whether if you seek out resources, there are so many people, hundreds, if not thousands of people willing to help that I think, we don't talk about. So don't feel alone.
That's awesome.
I like that as well.
Yeah. So as we start to wrap up, everyone in the audience, I encourage you guys to go and check out Maine Mental Health Counselors Association. You can check them out at memhca.org, or you guys also have your Facebook page as well.
Yep. We have an Instagram page.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
But also, if you guys are interested in getting in contact with NAMI Maine, you can always reach out to our helpline with any questions that you guys have. The number is listed on the screen now. And you can also check out our website for our resource database, and even some upcoming trainings and events that may be coming to an area near you. But thank you guys so much for watching. And Jordan and Alex, thank you guys so much for joining me. This has been a great conversation.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. We hope to see you guys in the next episode of NAMI Maine Talks.